Now I want you all to do this. Get out a calculator and type in 10,000. Let's assume this is the amount that your portfolio is at the beginning of your investment journey. Now you can put in whatever number you want, but 10,000 is a nice round number that makes it really easy to do calculations on. Now you want to times this number by just 1.1. Now the resulting number is what you're going to get if your investment portfolio grew by 10% at the end of that year. Now you can see the end portfolio result is 11,000. We can add a pound sign to this, so 11,000 pounds, meaning that we have gained 1,000 pounds in that year. Now in our head, 1,000 pounds sounds like a nice amount, and in 10 years, if you times it by 10, we assume that our initial amount will grow by 10,000 pounds. So that's 10,000 plus 10,000, that equals to 20,000 pounds. That seems all well and good, doesn't it? However, what if I told you that your assumption was wrong because your math wasn't quite just right? Now, if I go back and put in 10,000 pounds and then times it by just 1.1, at the end of the first year, yes, we are right, we would have 11,000 pounds. However, this doesn't take into effect the compounding effect. So at the end of year one, we would have 11,000 pounds. If we just press equals once again, at the end of year two, we would have 12,100 pounds. So where does this extra 100 pounds come from? Now that is exactly where we start to see compound interest. You see, compound interest is the interest we gain on top of our interest. At the end of the first year, we had 11,000 pounds. Now the 10% is applied to that 11,000 pounds, meaning at the end of year two, we have 12,100 pounds. Let's see what happens at the end of year three. We have 13,310 pounds. So now we have an extra 310 pounds that we didn't account for in our initial calculation. And that just goes to show the power of compound interest actually working. Now let's see, 4th year, 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, 8th year, 9th year, 10th year. Now at the end of 10 years, assuming of course we got 10% every single year, we can see that our portfolio value is 25,937 pounds. Now remember, you can do this with any calculator pretty much on earth. You don't have to go to any specific website, but we can see that our portfolio value is 5,937 pounds higher than we assumed when we took into consideration the growth of 10% per year in our heads. So in this video, I'm going to go through my 2 ISAs which I've had since 2021 and see if the compounding effect has actually been applied to me, even though it hasn't been that long in the process of investing. Now this is my Trading 212 ISA. Just a quick word before I actually show it. I by no means ever give financial advice, and I never tell you to do exactly what I do in my personal accounts. It's very simple. If you do want to grow your long-term wealth, what you're going to have to do is invest consistently in a fund that, you know, provides a stable amount of growth per year. And although it is very difficult to know future performance, there are excellent examples of funds which have given, you know, over 9 to 10% per year for decades, such as the S&P 500 and maybe even something like the FTSE All World. Now, of course, I would never give financial advice, and I've always shown my portfolio updates with a warning: don't copy what I do, because at the end of the day, it's your money. I can't tell you what to do with it. And this is my money, so no one else gets to have a say in it. But the goal of my personal investing has always been to get a stable 10% per year, regardless of where the market is heading. Now, as you can see, my current Trading 212 ISA account value is £45,256. Now, the reason why I'm showing you my ISAs instead of my general investment account is because it is very easy to make calculations, because of course, as you can see here, each year you can only contribute a maximum of £20,000 to your ISAs, which I have done since 2021. So that's 4 years of depositing. So the gains I show you cannot be artificially, you know, increased from free shares and things like that. So for those reasons, the calculations I'm going to do on this video will let us see if I have achieved 10% compounding return per year since opening my ISAs. Of course, I talk about Trading 212 a lot on this channel, and if you would like to sign up to Trading 212 and receive a free share, use a link in the description down below. Or if you've recently signed up and haven't received a free share, you can always use my promo code JUBAIR and you will receive a free share. Now, I first deposited the full £20,000 at the end of April in 2023. Now, in my Trading 212 ISA, I deposited £20,000 at the end of April in 2023, just as the beginning of the new tax year started. Now, by the end of the first year, assuming I had 10% growth, I would expect my portfolio balance to be £22,000. Now, in this first year, 10% growth will be equal to £2,000. This means that in interest alone, alone, I received £2,000. You can kind of think of this like free cash because I didn't have to work for that money. This was the return that the stock market gave me. Now in April of 2024, just a few months ago, I put in £20,000 as soon as the new tax year started. So assuming 10% growth by the end of this tax year, I should have at least £46,200. Now, as you can see, my portfolio balance is £45,256. There are still a lot of months left until the end of the next tax year, which means that I should be on track to achieving 10% each year on my Trading 212 ISA at least. Now, because I deposit £20,000 per year, 10% growth on the second year would be equal to £4,600, up from £2,000, but of course, bear in mind that I deposited £20,000 extra. At the end of the financial year, if my portfolio exceeds £46,200, in interest alone, I would have gained £6,200, up from the interest in my first year of just £2,000. This just goes to show that compound interest becomes apparent even in the shorter years, but my Trading 212 account hasn't even seen 2 years yet. If we extrapolate this over 40 years, we can see huge amount of results. Now, I also want to show you that the compounding effect still works if you stop depositing in your old ISAs. Take a look at this. This is another ISA that I have with another platform. You can see that the current balance is £59,825, and I first started depositing into this ISA at the beginning of the tax year in 2021, and again at the beginning on 2022. So this ISA is basically 2 years worth of deposits. And of course, in 2023 and 2024, I deposited into Trading 212 instead. So let's do the same analysis that we did on our Trading 212 account. So in June of 2021, I deposited £20,000. At the end of that tax year, assuming a 10% growth, I would have £22,000. And that 10% growth on the first year would be equal to £2,000. Now in April of 2022, when the tax year started, I deposited another £20,000. So assuming again another 10% growth at the end of that year, I should have at least £46,200, and that 10% growth would of course be equal to £4,200. But what happened was, after that April, of course I started depositing somewhere else. But what happens to an ISA after you've stopped depositing into it? For those who don't know, even if you deposit into an ISA and just leave it, that money is going to still keep growing, of course assuming you put it into investments that grow themselves. However, because I haven't deposited any more, let's just see what we assume for 10% growth year on year on that money. So assuming at the end of 2022, my portfolio balance should have been at least £46,200. At the end of 2023, with a 10% growth, my portfolio should have been £50,820. Now this 10% growth at this stage would be equal to £4,620, up from the growth of 10% the previous year, from £4,200. This means at the end of 2023, given those results, my interest alone in total would have been £10,820 at the end of 3 years of investing in an ISA. Now, if I receive another 10% on top of that by the end of 2024's tax year, I should have a portfolio balance of £55,902. But as you can see, my current balance is actually a bit more than that. That is because since investing each year, I have actually received a bit more than 10%, and that has compounded nicely to give my current balance of £59,825. Now, 10% growth would be equal to £5,082 per year at this portfolio value. And at the end of 2024, if my portfolio balance was at least £55,902, the interest alone at the end of the 4th year would be over £15,900. Now, I am very happy with the performance of my ISA, and I know if I had done things differently over the past year, I would have probably made more than 20%. However, that is why I make videos time and time over again, to show you that one of the best ways, tried and tested ways anyway, of building long-term wealth is to just stick with your funds, and no matter where the market heads, don't try to time the market, because time in the market is pretty much always better than trying to time the market. In the long run, good investments tend to go up, even though in the short term, there always will be fluctuation. So make sure to check out some of my other videos, and I will see you in the next video.